All right, good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 school committee meeting. As always, these meetings are audio and video recorded. I call this meeting to order. I will start with introductions. To my left,
Jeff Bowe. Joe Messina, Business Administrator.
Hi, Mike Flanagan, Superintendent.
Ryan McMahon.
Becky Stanton.
Good evening, Julie Guastucci.
Anthony Tenerella.
Natalie Barrow, Student Representative.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll seek a motion to approve the November 4th, 2020 negotiations subcommittee minutes, December 1st, 2020 school committee meeting minutes, and December 1st, 2020 policy subcommittee minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 5-0. Correspondence.
Mr. Chair, 2 items for correspondence in your drive tonight. The first one is a letter. It's a joint letter from the School Committee Association at the state level as well as the Superintendent Association at the state level. And that letter is to Governor Baker. And essentially, it states that there is some concern amongst school committees and superintendents across the Commonwealth that Governor Baker is making this strong push for in-person learning and almost being somewhat critical of some of the plans that are being implemented in local districts. And I think one of the things that this committee knows better than anything is that since May, our school committees and our superintendent association have been looking for a unified voice in one decision. And we kept hearing about guidance and we kept hearing about advisories coming out. But essentially it was left to the locals. All hybrid models and all remote learning plans were left to the local districts to decide. That being said, I can tell you that just about every town in Massachusetts that touches Tyngsborough has a different plan. So at this point, the governor is begging for in-person learning and wants everyone to move forward. I think the spirit of the letter is to please understand that a lot of time went into negotiations, a lot of time went in developing these at the local level with a best fit plan for the community. So it begs that the governor please acknowledge that on some level, recognize that on some level, and if you're going to establish some leadership, then there needs to be some support around some of these other potential parameters or obstacles in the way. So that's the first letter. The second piece of correspondence is hot off the press from 9 o'clock this morning. We received the proposed budget timeline that was approved last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting. Mr. Messina and I have not really had a lot of time to really dive into that and look at that. There are 2 alternative timelines that are prepared. One would look at a potential town meeting the Sunday after graduation so that they could potentially use a setup that's going to exist on Pierce Field anyways after graduation. And the other one looks to push out town meeting a little bit later in June. So right now I think it's kind of wait and see. So we need to really look at the dates and see where we are. But Mr. Messina and I will discuss that. You'll hear about a potential budget subcommittee coming up a little bit later in the meeting. And that'll be something for the budget subcommittee to talk about as well. So that's the other piece of correspondence for tonight.
Thank you. Visitors, comments, and questions? I see none. Share the success. Natalie?
At TES, Trimester 1 report cards were sent home on Friday. They were made proud of their students' academic and social emotional achievements during this trimester. Their hard work, resiliency, and positive attitude have been remarkable to see, according to the staff members. Since they cannot be together for their community building assemblies, a special thanks goes out to their school counselors and Mrs. Mitchell from the tech department for bringing their stripes lessons to Tiger Talk Morning News. Most recently, the students learned about respect. This weekend, stop by TES to check out the Festival of Trees posted on the exterior windows. Each classroom decorated a tree, and there is even a main office tree as Dr. Flanagan as a snowman. At TMS, the students did remarkably well through Trimester 1 and are ready for Trimester 2. They are having a holiday mask contest for both cohorts this week. Students have been enjoying holiday movies through their lunches as a positive distraction. They will be letting their students sit safely with their friends in the new year during lunch while keeping the same protocols in place. The yearbook advisors are coming up with unique ways to document this year with different pictures and new tech solutions to make it seem like any other year. In THS news, members of National Honor Society have decorated the lobby and will be having a food drive in which donated items will be sent to local food banks. The THS Student Council dedicated a recent meeting with both cohorts to make holiday cards for the elderly at Duville Manor. These notes will certainly help make spirits bright for the patients at nursing homes who cannot have visitors due to COVID-19 precautions. Student Council is also currently working on giving holiday notes and small tokens of appreciation to 50 faculty members employed at the high school. All gestures of appreciation will be delivered next week by the Student Council members. And Student Council would like to thank Carbon Colors of Drake for making this year's awesome Student Council t-shirts. All the members really enjoy them and love them. Winter athletes are looking forward to the start of their winter sports season. Both girls and boys basketball teams began practicing on Monday. And speaking of athletics, we would like to congratulate 2 female athletes for signing their letter of intent to play Division I collegiate athletics. Molly Flanagan recently signed her letter of intent to play lacrosse at Merrimack College, and Molly McHugh signed her letter of intent to play soccer at UNH. Congratulations to the Flanagan and McHugh families. We want you to know that we truly appreciate the work that is being done to make decisions to keep us well, and we thank you very much for all of your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. There is no subcommittee update at this time. Personnel?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one extension for a leave of absence to Christina Landry Turk. We granted that through February 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Unfinished business? School committee update?
Sorry. We'll go to our school committee update. Couple talking points for tonight. So just to move forward, I won't spend a lot of time on this. We'll go to learning model drivers. Again, just a good reminder for everyone in the community. This is what we're looking at as we think about safely educating our students and staff this year. The next goal, we will continue to follow context and data. We will make sure that we are informed about everything that we possibly can be informed about as we think about providing a safe learning environment. The metrics, you saw these Sunday, nothing has changed. This comes out every Thursday night around 6 o'clock, so that'll be updated this week. Just to reiterate, Massachusetts Department of Health DESE recommendations in line with DPH learning model metrics, schools in red community should implement hybrid models, which is exactly where we are, and we are maximizing in-person learning time for high-need students. We'll go to the next slide. We'll stop here for a second, and I hope people can see that at home. But this is updated as of 5:28 this evening. As you know, parents probably received a lot of emails today. I think we had 6 new cases. I know we had 6 new cases come on the district today. 5 cases dropped off. So we are currently at 17 active cases. We have 12 active cases of COVID at TES, 3 at TMS, and 2 at THS. You can see the percentages there. 1.85% of the in-person population at TES, 0.77% of the in-person population at TMS, and 0.47% of the in-person population at THS. Brings our cumulative number in the district since September 14th to 49 total cases. Our current active cases represent 1.15% of the district. Cumulative since September 14th, 3.25% of our in-person people in the district. So those are the numbers updated as of tonight. I think this is a stat that's important. I think this is something that we should lead on. This is also the document that you will find on the dashboard, the homepage dashboard. I do want to say, though, that dashboard's updated every Monday afternoon. So that is not a live dashboard that we do on a daily basis. As I think about it, it may be something that we want to revisit and update it maybe more than once a week, particularly given the surge that we're seeing in the community now. So I will work with our tech department, and I'll try to get this updated at least Mondays and Thursdays, at least twice a week. We'll try to have that updated, and if we need to do more, we'll go from there. But these are the latest numbers on the district, and we'll move from there. So today there was a meeting, Board of Elementary and Secondary Education had a meeting, and they essentially oversee the entire Department of Education. And one of the things that they were talking about is structured learning time. And basically, a month ago, every district in the Commonwealth had to assess the amount of synchronous in-person time you had in your schedule with students. We had to fill out a survey, and we had to submit that to the Department of Elementary Education. this actually ties into my earlier point nicely. As I said, that every town that touches Tyngsborough has a different schedule. One of the things that there was great concern about is the lack of synchronous or concurrent learning time for some students across the Commonwealth. So the Commission of Education, the Department of Education made a recommendation to the Board of Education, essentially the Commissioner, Superintendent of the Board, the school committee, saying, I think we need to have a baseline, a minimum baseline for in-person synchronous time. This presentation happened today. And I want this community and the school committee to know that in an audit of our synchronous time, Tyngsborough is completely fine. We meet the minimum threshold, we exceed the minimum threshold significantly. So we're in a good spot there. And I think that's because of our concurrent model. Other districts, some districts around us have asynchronous time where kids are learning asynchronously at home, meaning the student will get an assignment in the morning and they're responsible for turning that assignment in either at the end of the day or the following week. So one of the things that's of grave concern, and the reason I come to this is there is a real concern for the social and emotional well-being of students across the state and country. So they had 3 professionals at the meeting today that were really supporting this increase in synchronous learning time. Dr. Lloyd Fisher is the president of the Massachusetts chapter of the National Association of Pediatrics. Dr. Matthew Birmingham, he works at the Metro West Center for Wellbeing, he's a child psychiatrist. And then Diana Santiago, who's a staff attorney and mass advocate for children. One of the things they're concerned about, and I think the numbers are alarming at the bottom, pediatricians have never seen anything like this in this pandemic. And they're concerned about the mental health and well-being of students across this country. We're seeing a significant increase in anxiety, depression, stress, eating disorders. One of the mass trends in data about outpatient visits are being tracked right now, but the CDC has a report on there, and this is what these doctors cited today. And I think it's important to note, I'm going to provide some context in Tyngsborough in a moment, that students' inpatient hospital visits for children aged 5 to 11 increased by 24% in the months from April to October. Inpatient hospital visits for students aged 12 to 17 increased by 31% in that same time frame. So mental health is a concern, and we're worried about our kids. And there's a sense of isolation, there's a sense of depression, there's a sense of loneliness. So that concurrent, that synchronous time, that ability to see a student and check in with a student is critical. So that being said, I asked Dr. Branco, Mrs. Lewenzik, and our counselors to really talk about what we're seeing here in the Tyngsborough Public Schools. And our counselors put this together for us. And these are the 4 big takeaways. These are 4 big points. There's an increased need for emotional supports for students with symptoms of anxiety and/or depression. These are kids that haven't necessarily needed support before. We're starting to see an uptick in that throughout our district. We're getting increased reports of students' difficulties with lack of motivation and engagement in learning, feeling isolated, lonely, away from their peers. We didn't cite it here, but one of the other concerns that the doctors in the previous slide mentioned was kids who are struggling right now, some of them are afraid to talk to their parents about it because they're afraid of adding more stress, because they can feel the stress in the environment. So just another thing that makes me think about how we can best support our kids. One of the other things we've seen in our community is an increased need for consultation with our staff. Our staff are seeing kids struggle more than ever, and we need to provide them the support to help these kids to the best of their ability. And we're also seeing an increased need for assistance outside of the school, and how can we get our kids in touch with mental health professionals outside of the district. So I would like, potentially at one of our upcoming meetings, to have some of our counseling staff or Mrs. Lewenzik really dive a little bit deeper into this and present more thoroughly about what's going on in terms of providing emotional support for our kids. But I want you to know that's something that we are cognizant of, and our counselors are working tremendously. Joe, if you go to the next slide, and I won't read all of these things to you, but our counselors are phenomenal, and they're on it, and they're working hard. And we're doing everything we can to support our kids. But we are concerned. We are concerned about where they are. We're concerned about their mental health, and it's just something that we want the committee and the community to know that the mental well-being of all our kids is absolutely a front burner issue for us this year, And, in light of anything you may have read in the paper today about the structured learning time, well, the catalyst behind some of that conversation was we need to be able to see our kids and talk to our kids and see what's going on and have them have an outlet and somebody they can check in with. So, at a future meeting, I would like to bring some of our school staff in to really talk a little bit more depth about what they're doing with kids. I think that's important.
Could we make that a separate meeting where that's all we talked about? Bring them in and just have a special, or where we can actually take time and understand it and not a 15-minute blurb in the middle of a regular scheduled meeting?
I don't see why not.
Sure.
I don't know if the rest of the group would like to see that, but
Yeah, so let me coordinate that with our folks and see what that would look like. But I want parents to know that we are doing everything we possibly can, and I implore parents, if you have a concern, please reach out to the schools. Let us know. We are happy to get involved. We're happy to get more involved. We're happy to intervene. The other component of this that I forgot to mention is our school resource office has been phenomenal at this as well. Bethany Bonzo has done a great job of being someone who can really check in on kids for us. So it's a whole team approach, and our counselor's doing a fantastic job. But I think it's important that we get that message out there. So that's what I have for this slide tonight. Again, this meeting, we had a meeting on Sunday, talked a lot about what we want to do. So I know that we want to reach out to the Board of Health, and I'm asking for a little bit more clarification about that, because I also heard we want to reach out to the COVID status review team, and I also heard our school nurses brought up at some point. So I guess I'm looking for a targeted focus of who we want to reach out to, and what do we want the communication to be, when do we want it to be, and do we want it to be a Zoom meeting, because I think a lot of the town boards are going with Zoom for meetings. So I just need direction. I have no problem reaching out to anyone or all of these groups. I just want a targeted focus so I can tell them, we want to talk to you about this. I don't want somebody to come in and not really know what we're going to talk about. So I'm looking for some direction from anyone in the committee as to what we'd like to say.
Sure, and I had made the request about meeting with the Board of Health, and it came from a couple of reasons, and even more relevant after watching last night's Board of Health meeting. All of the Board of Health members are very engaged in the current status of COVID in the community. And they're the decision makers as it relates to the Board of Health decisions in the community. I'm not saying for the school, I'm just saying like Board of Health decision in the community. I don't have it up on my screen right now, but some of the DESI guidelines or guidance says when communities have high numbers, and I'm not citing it perfectly, but it did reference something about when communities have, see spikes or have high numbers, that they should meet with the Board of Health before making changes, or I'm paraphrasing, something along those lines. And that's the reason for my request to have the discussion with the Board of Health. Members here, including myself, have said, I'm not a medical professional, we're not medical professionals, these people are medical professionals. So I would like to meet with the Board of Health after the new year, basically as soon as possible after the new year.
I'm not entirely sure who's on the Board of Health, so forgive my ignorance. I don't believe it's required to be a medical professional to be on the Board of Health, though. So do we know how many are actually medical professionals?
I know at least 2 are. The chair, Sheila Peralt, is a medical professional. I don't know what her title is, but she is a medical professional. And I know Michelle Riley is also a medical professional. The others, I don't know if they're medical professionals, and I wasn't ready for that question, so I don't know for sure if they are medical professionals or not.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's all right.
But the COVID response, the COVID status team is actually several of those members as well, correct?
So we have Michelle Riley, and then we have Carrie Owen, who's the health agent for the town.
And then our school nurses.
No, well, Michelle represents.
Oh, Michelle represents our nurses?
Correct.
All right.
Could we also have, if we were to do a Zoom where we have all these entities on it, could we also have somebody from the mental health group too? Because I think what our goal of this meeting was to decide if we're still going forward the same way, right? Isn't that?
Well, I don't know that it was to decide. I think it was to get another perspective on, you know, the school is not, the school impacts the community, and the community impacts the school. And so we need to work in harmony with the community, and the Board of Health is that board, or, you know, that body that we should look to for guidance. And you know, we're following DESI guidance, and DESI says work with your Board of Health. So that's what the request is for. And I'm not saying that there'll be any different realizations that come out of it. I just think that if we're doing our due diligence, then, and, you know, following context and data, then we need to have that context from them.
Is that the data we're currently getting is from them, or no?
It's from the state.
So the data that we put up,
Yeah.
that's from Mass DPH, and the Board of Health has that same data, yes. And more data. I mean, they do, as Becky said, they oversee everything in the community, so it's a different perspective, if nothing else.
Do we know how much information they're allowed to talk about that we don't already have?
I don't know that answer.
So
So what is that? And I'm not opposed to them coming at all. Just to make that clear, what do we want from them? I
I think I
guess.
just said what we wanted from them. Like, we want to get the context from them. We're getting the data. I would like to get the context. I mean, if you're not interested in meeting with them, that's fine. I'll meet with them
No, I just
personally.
said I'm
But-
interested.
That's what, I mean, I can just repeat myself, that I'm interested in getting the context from them. I'm interested in hearing what they have to say about the spike in our community. And hopefully by the time we meet, it's not a spike anymore. I mean, that's what we would all want. But I'm looking at the DESI recommendations, and I'm trying to be open-minded, and you know, DESI recommends speaking with the Board of Health when you're seeing a spike in your community, and we're seeing a spike in our community.
So I think maybe we should have a conversation with them sort of offline to figure out some guidelines of, you know, what's inbounds and out of bounds, because I don't want to put them on the spot.
Yeah, I don't want to be inappropriate.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Because they definitely have access to information, you know, they can't share publicly.
Yep.
So let me draft something, and I'll run it by you. You can tell me if this is what we're looking for, and I'll send it off. That's fine.
Okay.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah.
So I know in the past when we meet with other boards, we typically do a motion. Do we want to do a motion?
Is
Yeah.
it premature for that?
We can wait and see. We're meeting again in a second. So we can-
Well,
So we
maybe
can
we
do a
can make
motion.
them, let's make the motion now. So I'll make a motion to request a meeting with the Board of Health as soon as possible in January. Do I need to add anything else to that?
That we're going to request, ask Dr. Flanagan to please
Yeah.
request that. Yes.
along with
Along with guidelines
appropriate
on,
guidelines.
appropriate guidelines for discussion.
Yes.
I'll second it.
discussion.
Seven.
Can I just back up before we?
Just
course.
point of order. Mike Moran just joined the meeting.
Oh, okay. Okay. So just I get to what's up there, what would be the goal of this meeting then? Just to get the perspective.
You get the context around the data. We are getting the data, and I don't argue that we're getting the data. We're getting a lot of numbers, but there's a lot of stories that go behind those numbers, and I know that they're not going to be able to say, you know, it was so-and-so's family, and this is the detail behind their family, but, you know, we ask a lot of questions here. We ask about contact tracing, and how does the contact tracing happen, and, you know, do lots of these questions, and unfortunately, Dr. Flanagan's always put in the hot spot here, and
Kind of his
you know,
job.
yeah, and you know, he can't answer all of them because they're done by the Board of Health or they're managed by the Board of Health. I want to understand more about that.
So basically, this is just an information gathering session. That's the goal of the meeting. I'm just trying to get the goal.
My goal is to learn more so that I can make an
Information
informed
gathering. Yeah.
decision or an informed recommendation if I needed to.
So is that what we're doing at that meeting, making a recommendation? Because that wasn't originally what I thought we said. I thought we said we're going to meet January 2nd or 3rd to make a recommendation.
Oh, sorry,
This is a separate. This is a separate meeting.
Oh, yes.
These are separate meetings.
Okay, that's fine. I kept trying to wrap my head around it. Okay, so
Yeah, I'm
this is
not-
two different things.
Two different things,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay, so this is just, we're going to meet twice, I guess, in that time
Yeah.
period? Okay.
Yeah, there'll be an extra meeting. If they could come potentially to a regularly scheduled meeting. We'll see. We'll coordinate with them and figure out what makes most sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was all, okay.
But, you know, to Becky's point, there are a lot of questions around how the
Yeah,
contact
yeah,
tracing
I
works,
get
how it
it.
affects us, who's notified, so.
And do we want all three groups, or do we just need the Board of Health, or how do we want to do that?
I don't think we'll get anything extra out of inviting the rest of the COVID status review team. I'm on the team, and we can certainly have Sarah here that night if we want. Michelle Riley's on the team. If the Board of Health is coming, I don't know if Carrie Ellen would come or not. So most of the team would be there anyway.
Yeah, I think I'm good now. I mean, I rewatched our meeting the other day, and I heard a lot, and I didn't know who to send a letter to or invite to, and I didn't know what the context of the invite was or even a date. So this is not the January 2nd or 3rd meeting. This is an early January meeting as soon as we can. So then, that being said, you have a motion on the floor, get a vote on that.
So any more discussion on the motion? Anything from Mike?
Mike, any questions?
Just someone could just repeat what the motion is.
The motion is to invite the Board of Health to a meeting in early January to discuss the context of the data, contact tracing, and things that aren't necessarily in the wheelhouse of people in the school department, just so the committee can get better understand COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote.
In favor?
Mike Moran?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That passes 6-0-0. Thank you.
Okay, so we answered that question. Now, here was my other question from Sunday. I heard January 2nd and January 3rd on Sunday, and I'm just trying to plan accordingly. This committee wants to come together on January 2nd or 3rd to review COVID data.
Correct.
Yes, and I think both were put out there in order to be flexible and just kind of whatever works for.
I'll coordinate with the committee and get you a time.
Okay.
And we'll publish it.
All right. I have some clarity now. That's all I need. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's all we have, Mr. Chair, for school committee update. Just the final slide is upcoming meetings that we have. Mrs. Lenzik will be at the January 12th meeting to provide us a special education update. We'll begin budget timeline discussion on January 26th, and it looks like we should have a preliminary budget for February 9th. Again, that'll be 20,000-foot look at the budget, and then we'll work with bringing the finance committee in and going from there. So that's a tentative schedule right now. Again, we received the budget timeline this morning from town administrator, so Mr. Messina and I have to really look at that and fine-tune the comment to make sure we're good. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 8B, the following policies are presented as a second read. Policy 3.4, non-discrimination and harassment. Policy 5.8, eligibility for participation in school programs. 5.29, homeless students, enrollment rights and services. 5.33, educational opportunities for military children. 5.34, educational opportunities for children in foster care. I'll seek a motion to accept those policies as a second read.
I'll make that motion to accept them as a second read.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? Roll call vote. Jeff?
In favor?
Mike Moran?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
That passes 6-0-0. Thank you. Item 9, new business. Budget subcommittee discussion. Mr. Messina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Annually, similar to what Dr. Flanagan does for the committee in terms of providing some goals for the upcoming school year, he asks all of his administrators to do the same thing. This being a challenging year for sure for all of us, I think usually I struggle to come up with some goals to tie in education with finance. We always want to make them education driven. Generally I say to the superintendents, hey, survival is the #1 goal. Let's get through the year whole. But it seemed like the pandemic gave me a wealth of things to think about in terms of the committee's bench beyond me, for lack of a better word, and some of the other items as it related to budget prep for FY22. And one of the things in discussion I had with the superintendent was maybe this is the time to get maybe 2 members of the school committee that will work with the superintendent and myself to dig a little bit deeper financially on a regular basis to see what's going on, starting with budget 22, because it's going to look so much different than is it just we just roll over what we're doing right now. This is a COVID operation. So, hopefully we're beyond this in the fall and we're up and running normal, and it's going to look completely different than what the current operation is in terms of expenses, in terms of revenues, the whole picture. So in discussion with Mike, I said maybe this is the time to get a couple of members to sort of help us dig deep, get a little bit more knowledge of the day-to-day operations as they pan out on a financial side. And Mike seemed like he thought it might be a good idea to do it at this time, and I was sort of presenting it to the committee for your thoughts.
If I could just add one point to that. I know this is something that Mr. Mullen has asked repeatedly over the last 3 years to have a budget subcommittee. I know it's something that he would be very interested in being a member of. So I know he's not here tonight, but it's something that he's really pushed for the last several years. So I just want to make the committee aware of that.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to form a budget subcommittee.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great
It's
idea.
a great time to do it because we're looking at things differently. And I think it's really important.
Me too.
Okay.
Joe, what do you see these meetings looking like? Just so people can start thinking about time commitment.
So again, I sort of threw out 2 members, just, we're all busy. We all have our subcommittee meetings to attend. So I didn't want to bring in too many members of the committee into this. But, budget season might be a little bit busier in terms of, discussions. But I would think the meetings themselves probably would be an hour or so to maybe get through some stuff, maybe give me some directive as to what we want to see for the next meeting. And just, it's a blank palette. I mean, we're gonna work to it. We have some big rocks that we have to discuss, the FY22 budget. I'd like to look at the budget tool. I mean, we've used that budget tool for probably about 10 or 11 years now. Maybe it's time that we adapt the budget tool a little bit. Financial policies that are pretty much absent within the school committee policy might be another big rock that we want to take a swing at. But initially, like I said, probably 45 minutes to an hour, just to work through some things, maybe longer if we have to do any more digging.
The only other point I'll make to that is we can have 3. We can't have 4. That would be a quorum. And my other concern is we're also entering negotiations with Unit A, then Unit D.
Yeah.
We're finishing up with Council 93. So I don't want anyone to spread themselves too thin on top of all the policy work that's happening. But it's a good opportunity. I think it's important that we do this, and that's where we are.
So how soon are you looking to begin?
Next week.
Yeah. You have a lot on your plate. We have a lot of discussion about extra meetings. We can not necessarily begin this in January. We can look to early February to start this. It depends how actively the newly formed committee members want to jump in on what the rollout of the first budget may look like.
Okay, so I would suggest anybody who's interested in joining the committee, send an email to myself and Dr. Flanagan, stating your interest and, maybe why if you feel like it. And then, Dr. Flanagan and I can look at the current subcommittee assignments and, we'll probably pick, if there's more than 3 people interested, we'll have to pick. If not, you'll be on a committee. And then we can vote on it at our January 12th meeting.
So we can always do alternates.
Correct.
if need be. So,
Okay, so the motion on the floor is for the creation of the committee. That's a roll call vote. Jeff?
In favor.
Mike Moran?
In favor?
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Passes 6-0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. 9B, tiered focus monitoring review.
This is just, Mr. Chair, every 2 years, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed sends out teams to audit all your systems, all your operations. It used to be called the Civil Rights Review process. Now it's called tiered focus monitoring. Basically, this is just notification from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed that on January 25th, 2021, the Tyngsborough Public Schools will be under audit for our civil rights policies and practices, as well as our special education policies, practices, manuals. I will say that the past 2 reviews, Tyngsborough has hit it out of the park and hit a home run, and that's in large part thanks to the work of Sarah Lewenzik, Josh Evans, and Brian Riley. Do a phenomenal job. Our principals are involved on some level, but our team has put out a great product every time this has been reviewed, and it's just, I anticipate that will be the case again in January 25th. So thank you to that group for that work. But this is the public release that we have to put out there so everyone knows that it is happening.
Thank you. Finance. Mr. Messina?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 14 bill warrants were presented to the committee tonight for their approval. I do have them all back. In the drive are the warrant numbers, accounts, and amounts for review. For signing of payroll, there were 2 payrolls since the last signing of payroll brought up. The payroll of November 23rd as well as the payroll of December 7th. Those 2 warrants are in your drive with the amounts as well. For other finance, I did want to just bring up, there seemed to be some discussion about surrounding transportation billing and invoicing. I have received from DBus so far just 2 1/2-month bills for the months of September and October, basically 1/20th of the original contract. I was still working with DBus in terms of the combination of actual busing versus the transportation readiness that we talked about when we had to close down last year in March. I do believe that as a district, we should be paying DBus something for the transportation readiness on those days. I don't necessarily think we should be paying a full price. I presented it to DBus as the 50% agreement that we had in place since March. They seemed like they wanted a little bit more than that on the days they're not driving for us. We haven't come to any discussion beyond that. Might be something for the new budget subcommittee to work with DBus to maybe sit down and see why the 50% isn't reasonable, or what the holdup is in terms of moving it forward. But as of right now, she's only sent me that 1/20th bill for September and for October. I told her I didn't feel comfortable paying for either of the full months until we had a finalized agreement in place as what to transportation readiness versus the actual driving of the buses. And that's where we are right at this moment. Still waiting on a November invoice to present on a bill warrant.
Thank you.
Well,
If I may, how many buses are we using on Wednesdays for other school districts?
so currently on Wednesdays, there are 3 buses on the road, 2 for Notre Dame and 1 for Innovation.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
And that's it.
thank you. School committee discussion. Jeff?
We're discussing in a different seat than I am. First, I'd like to just say thank you to the parents, teachers, nurses, everyone that really has been making this all possible, and to Dr. Flanagan and the administration. To Becky's point, Dr. Flanagan is pretty consistently in the hot seat, but he does still make himself readily available to the Tyngsborough community, and as well as to the committee members here as well. So thank you for that. And thank you to this committee as well for taking time Sunday for pulling together for the meeting to kind of continue to discuss COVID and how it's impacting the schools. You know, I definitely still think that we have an opportunity here to protect both the students and the staff from, you know, potentially having this COVID get deeper into the school from the community. Obviously, we have another meeting coming up in January to further discuss that, but I do ask that this committee continues to be open-minded as we see potentially additional cases within the school community.
Joe?
I'm all set, thank you.
Natalie?
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm set. Thank you.
I'm also.
Mike Moran?
Mike Moran?
I'm all set. Just want to thank Dr. Flanagan and the team for all the hard work, and thank you for accommodating my remote schedule there.
Thanks, Mike.
Concurrent school committee session.
Not wearing a mask.
So I just have one thing to inform the community about, potentially, that if there is a chance that we cannot bring students and staff safely into school on Thursday, you could expect an early notification about a remote learning day on Thursday as well, potentially. Right now, the weather is not looking great. I've asked the teachers to be prepared to teach remotely on Thursday, so I will make that call sooner than later, given the conditions and given our ability to teach kids remotely on Thursday. In the event we lose power or significant parts of the town lose power, you will see us put out a no school day. So we will be remote or no school. Those are the two options right now, and I will let you know sooner than later. I also reserve the right to call a remote learning day and then go no school day if Google fails or the power goes out. So I'm reserving that right now. Thank you. That's it.
All right, thank you. To Jeff's point, thank you to everybody for all the hard work you guys are doing. Definitely not a typical year. We're putting in a lot of extra hours. Thank you to the teachers, the staff, all their hard work, the students. It's been quite a year. Luckily, 2020 is almost over, so happy holidays, everybody. We won't meet again until the new year, so. With that, we do have a need for executive session.
Brief.
We do have the need for a brief executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body as declared by the chair. We will return from the executive session only to adjourn the regular session meeting. This action requires a roll call vote. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to go to executive session.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote. Jeff?
In favor.
Mike Moran?
In favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
In favor.
It carries 6-0-0. We are in executive session. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.